Marketing Your Private Practice is a podcast where you'll learn easy to implement tips and strategies to grow your business without spending all day online. I'm your host, Kathy Colaiacovo, and I teach practitioners the Thrive marketing method to create simple and streamlined plans by focusing on long-term strategies, not just social media. Discover ways to spend less time on your marketing, attract more clients, and build the financial freedom that comes with a thriving practice. One where you have time left in your day for the people and things that matter to you. Hey, private practice heroes, it's Kathy Colaiacovo with the Marketing Your Private Practice podcast. And today we're doing one of our free marketing reviews with Ola Williams. Ola is a colleague of mine from a networking group. I have connected with her here in Nova Scotia. And she's a seasoned retail entrepreneur, techpreneur, and business coach who brings over 2 decades of frontline retail and leadership experience to the table. Currently, she is the president of Cornish's Variety, a thriving retail company nestled in Trenton, Nova Scotia. And I got to visit her there last week with my husband. We took a little adventure, which if you were on my email list, you probably read about it in the newsletter recently. Ola also hosts a podcast called Ola with Ola Williams, a personal development podcast for entry-level solopreneurs. So welcome, Ola, to the podcast here with me and your free marketing review.
Thank you, Kathy. I am so glad to be here.
Awesome. And I can't wait to dive in here. But before we do, I want to remind everyone listening in that these reviews are free and open to everyone. They are a way that you can get some help from someone like me, a marketing strategist. And what we really do is focus on one roadblock that you might be having that's holding you back from growing your business, that's giving you trouble with your marketing, typically is what I find. And what you get from a session like this are some of the first steps to move towards overcoming those roadblocks and start seeing the results you're looking to achieve, reaching your goals. So now we're going to head back to Ola, and I will put a link, everybody, in the show notes wherever you are listening to the podcast so that you can click and sign up for your own review if that's something you want to do. So Ola, you booked the free marketing review today asking if we could focus on your messaging. And what I want to do is just sort of review a little bit of what you said in the application so that everybody gets an idea of what your problem was that you wanted to talk about here today. What you had put in is that you're looking for help clarifying your messaging, your audience, and the content for your personal development podcast. So maybe just give us a little more detail about what you're struggling with when it comes to this area of your marketing.
All right. So I find that mostly I get calls from business owners, solopreneurs that are basically, some of them have been in the corporate world for some time and they're now venturing into entrepreneurship. Some of them, maybe they're just graduating from colleges and they want to go into their own business. They don't want to work for somebody else. They want to do their own thing. And so I get a lot of calls from such people, even when I attend events. Typically, what they ask me is they want some kind of help with how to navigate. Some of them even don't know what it means or what it entails to buy an existing business, for example. So they see me as somebody that has successfully operated a business that I acquired, and they just want some wisdom from that. So from running my own business, I have found, and from speaking with some of my mentors that have run their own business for decades, I found that one key problem is for small business owners like me, one key problem is the issue of time crunch, always. And I experience the same problem. And that's what my podcast is about. It's about, I strongly believe that small business owners, they do so much wearing all the hats in their businesses. But at the same time, I also believe that there could be a better way whereby they could still have time to balance, what matters, like spending time with family and loved ones and still being able to do business. So my podcast is focused on those things that can help business owners, small business owners, solopreneurs to be exact. Firstly, on how to navigate the entrepreneurship world, and then when they get the ground running, also how not to just burn the midnight candle, like how not to get fatigued, how not to just spend their entire life running their business without having time for their personal life. So that's what my podcast is about. So back to your question, Kathy, when I said I'm looking forward to clarifying my message, sometimes I feel maybe my message is not clear. And this is me. I just want to make sure my message is clear and I'm attracting the people that need that what I'm offering will benefit. So that's essentially why I am so much looking forward to speaking with you today, Kathy.
Okay, great. That gives me some more details on it. So one thing that I'm always big on, and we teach this in my Thrive Marketing Academy, we have a couple modules on knowing your client and knowing your offer. And a lot of that comes down to being able to clearly tell someone who you are, how you help them, and what happens to them, or what's, the transformation they experience after you work with them. So the one thing that I'm not sure about with your business setup and your model that you've got going, Ola, is with the podcast. So you have the podcast, but what is the goal of the podcast? Is it to educate and inform only? Are you actually looking for people who listen to the podcast to connect with you and sign up to work with you somehow? Do you have a service? So I'm not quite sure what the service is you offer, if there is one, because there are passion podcasts where you're looking to educate and inform only and kind of build things around a community or a feeling or a movement. Or are you looking to have people reach out, book a call with you, talk to you about working with you?
Good question, Kathy. So, and I'm glad you asked that. So I have the goal to eventually have a business coaching practice where people can come to me for coaching. But in the shorter term, like right now, I don't have that practice yet, but that's the goal. And this is like maybe something I've set for myself, like maybe in the next 1 year or 2 years. But presently, what I have is, as you rightly say, the podcast is to educate, to let people see what I can offer them, kind of like, if you like, building credibility, the way I see it. And the tool I have now, I have what some people call manifestation cards. I believe so much in them. And the reason is I have seen them work. Because entrepreneurship or even being a solopreneur can be very lonely. And I'm talking from personal experience and from speaking with people. And sometimes I use manifestation cards myself. And sometimes it might just be one message that you need to hear a particular day. I remember when I was reading a book and the author said she had researched a lot about vulnerability and things were going right. Then all of a sudden things were just going wrong. And it was like everybody was just criticizing her. And she said, just then she saw a quote, and that quote was reading something about, oh, it is the people in the arena that really matter, not the people outside of the arena that are doing nothing. And she said that gave her focus, that centered her, and that gave her the energy to move on. And that's why I believe so much in manifestation cards, that those lonely moments where solopreneurs, it seems like maybe the world is crumbling and they can't really get a hold of what's going on. A message from one of those cards could be, life-saving. And so right now, back to your question, Carrie, I have created some manifestation cards that I offer on my platform. But the goal is to have a business coaching practice in the future, in the not too distant future. Yeah.
Okay. One of the things that I would say to you is, from here on in, as part of your messaging, be in the moment of having the coaching practice. Because if somebody wanted to reach out to you today, Ola, and work with you, would you work with them? Or would you say, no, you can't work with me for a year?
No, actually, I would. So that's a good way. I would.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is something a lot of business owners that I work with struggle with, is like having everything perfect before you can sign up and tell a client that you're open for business. So I would encourage you to jump into that mode of, you are a business coach, you have a business, you have your retail store. You have Cornish's Variety there in Trenton, but you also have Ola Williams, the personal development podcast and business coach. Stand in it, accept that you are a business coach now and you are open for business, because if someone did want to start working with you, you would work with them. Okay. Maybe you want to start off offering something simple, one-off coaching sessions or a package. Like I have a 2-week marketing roadmap. So if people want to work with me for a quick short term to get over some immediate issues that they have, they can sign up and work with me for 2 weeks. Very simple to do. I don't need a platform for it. I don't need, a site on the internet where people can access stuff. It's me and them and a questionnaire form and then some information. We record it. We meet on Zoom. You can do that now. So I would encourage you to stand in that and be that person as of now. So you do have the coaching business. It is part of what you have. And if someone does want to work with you, they can. So what it sounds like to me, and one of the things I really would encourage you to get to a place that you can do, and this might take a little bit, is when someone, and I know we're kind of doing an analysis here and a marketing review, and you're going to give me all the background, but I want you to be able, when someone says to you, "Hey, Ola, what kind of business coaching do you do? And what kind of clients do you work with?" I want you to be able to tell me in 2 sentences or less an answer to that. Okay. Some folks will call it an elevator pitch. I call it, a one-line offer statement. We also develop a unique service proposition. So what makes working with you a little bit different? So here's the thing. That's what I think one of the biggest things you need to work on is, saying who you are, what you offer. One of the things that I have, and Ola and I have met in the Center for Women in Business networking group. It's a organization here in Nova Scotia that supports women in business, all sorts of things. And they started a free coffee talk in 2020. And I've been going there every week. In 2020, just before the pandemic hit, my dog, Pepper, yes, as in Pepper It Marketing, she knocked me down in our living room, took me out and broke my elbow in 3 places. And I had surgery. And my elbow now works on 16 titanium pins and a couple plates. So I was home, I couldn't work, and things then started shutting down a few weeks later. So I started going to Coffee Talk. And Ola and I have been at the Coffee Talk. One of the things that happens at the Coffee Talk all the time is you get the opportunity to say your elevator pitch, say who you are and what you're doing. And I think it's important for people to have this clear message in play in a way that you can, adjust it a little and customize it for whatever situation you're in. So I actually keep a document. I call it my Zoom intro document. And in it, I have some of these different ways of saying my introduction. Sometimes I'll copy and paste it in a Zoom intro when people in certain networking opportunities tell you, hey, put your intro in the chat. And I do that. I just copy it in there. But what I'd love for you to get clear on, Ola, is saying that statement of who you are, what you do, who you are, what you offer, who you help, and how you help them. Okay. So I'm going to give you an example of mine. I'm going to just say I'm not perfect with mine, but I like to hope it comes across clear as what I offer and how I help people. So mine simply would say, and I'm actually reading from my script, but I'll adjust it as I go. Hey everyone, I'm Kathy Colaiacovo, host of the Marketing Your Private Practice with Kathy C podcast and president of pepperitmarketing.com. I work with private practice owners, dietitians, nutritionists, business coaches, and some other service-based business owners, and I help them simplify and streamline their marketing with coaching, training through my Thrive Marketing Academy, or working with me one-to-one. If you have any questions or want to reach out to me, you can connect with me on Instagram at Pepper It Marketing or book a free marketing review. So in there, and again, you all can judge me on this and write back to me on Instagram or wherever you're listening to this and say, okay, Kathy, I don't think that was great. But ideally, what I'm trying to get to is, do you understand who I help, what I offer, I help private practice owners. I gave some examples, dietitians, nutritionists, clinicians, simplify and streamline their marketing. So I'm not necessarily saying you might be having a problem with your marketing, but it's an insinuation there, right? If I'm helping you simplify and streamline, that's the improvement that we're going to do here. I help them through the Thrive Marketing Academy, my coaching, my training. So it gives an idea of what's going on. And you don't have to even get that deep. For you, what I'd probably say when I look at your podcast, for instance, your podcast says on it that you help, I think it was entry-level solopreneurs,
Yeah.
right? So one of the things that you could look at saying with your messaging is that my name is Ola Williams. I am a business coach and owner of a retail store and techpreneur. And I work with solopreneurs who are starting out in business, helping them. And I'm going to actually go to your podcast because I think I saw it on there or your website. I'm going to just look here and pull that up as we do this. Yeah. And for those listening, if you want to check out Ola's website, it's olawilliams.ca.
That's right.
And so on there, one of the things that you say in what you're doing and what you're talking about, I'm just going to click because I think it was on the podcast that I saw it, that really sort of spoke to it. You call it a personal development podcast, but part of the messaging you had in there on one of them, your conversations are about personal development for solopreneurs starting their entrepreneurship journeys. We talk about the principles of fairness, compassion, and commitment. You've developed tools rooted in the principles of fairness, compassion, and commitment to help people unlock their highest potential.
Okay, that's on my website, right?
That's on your website.
On my website, yes.
And then you also say you talk about eliminating the time crunch by implementing efficient automated processes, giving entrepreneurs the freedom to focus on what matters most.
Okay, that's on the tech side. Yeah.
That's on the website as well, right? So when you look at all of this, and then you have another line at the end, in the world of retail, finance, and personal development, I stand by this. Kindness is the key. Let's unlock your business potential, live the life you love, and continue to learn together. So you've got a lot of really good words here, but they don't necessarily come out succinctly and really clearly with one big message on your website. Okay.
So I have to give credit to whom credit is due. That part you're reading on my website was just recently updated for me by Daylene of BNI.
Okay.
And she just did that for me, like literally some few days ago. And I said, okay, I'm going to try it out. So I keep changing. So that's really new. So I just have to give credit because I didn't do all that by myself. But that's way better than what was there before. I still take the point that I still need to be making sure it's clear. Yeah.
So I'd love for you to start telling people and, putting the message out there that you're a business coach who brings over 2 decades of experience in retail and leadership, and you help the startup entrepreneur. You work with them to build a life they love through tools rooted in principles of fairness, compassion, and commitment. You help people unlock their highest potential. So there are things in there that you could really take and put into a concise statement. You want to make sure that what comes across in it is that people know kind of the specific type of client you're going to help, and also that they're going to have an understanding of what their life will look like after you help them. Okay? That's really key in what you put together here as part of your message. And when you do this, it's something that can transcend. It could be something we see on your website. It could be something you say in a podcast. It could be something you say in a social media post. It could be on your bio, on your about page. It could be all sorts of places. And you may adjust it a little depending on where you're putting it, whether it's written or spoken, and who you're saying or writing it to. But I think for you, that's one of the biggest blocks that I see is that it's not clear who you're helping, how you help them, and what happens to them when you do. You want to think about their problems. They're new entrepreneurs. They're starting up. when you start a business, you do work tons of hours. I mean, when you were talking about that, and when I read some of that on your website as well, like I totally get this. And one of the things that I'll tell you that really hit home for me was you have this section at the top where you ask a few questions on your website. Do you, a friend or family member, know a solopreneur who can't attend family and friend events because their life is their business, because they're wearing all the hats? Do you know that children of most solopreneurs believe their parents work too hard, and therefore solopreneurs are unconsciously creating a dislike for the profession in the mind of their little ones? That hit home for me, right?
Yeah.
Like that really spoke to me where I used to be when my kids were smaller. And one of the things that I think you want to think about is people that you work with or want to work with, because you may not have yet, but you're going to because you're in business now as a business coach, right?
Thank you.
Yeah. So, like, that's a real problem. I remember, and I started my business when my kids were 8, 9, and 11. So they were in elementary school and middle school, like junior high. And I was able to structure my day. I thought I was the best mom ever. I was able to structure my day so that, you know, I could pick them up from school. One of them played hockey and I had no problem. You know, I had the times booked off, and at 3:00, I could easily drive him to the hockey game for school. Whereas a lot of parents struggled if they were working a job for somebody else. And I thought I was doing great. And then one day my youngest said to me, I work too much, because I'd structured my day to be off around 3. And then I would start working again. I would do some work at around 7 or 8 later on. And they were saying, you know, this is too much, and you're working all the time. And sometimes it's perspective, right? I thought I was doing great. So we had a conversation, and I said, and I remember this so well, I was like, okay, well, if you really think that I'm not here enough, okay, so let's make some changes. I'll look for a job, I said. And I was kind of being a turkey at the time, but I just wanted to make it clear, because I really felt that what I had structured was great for my kids and allowed me to be with them more. So I said, okay, so I'll find a job. Most of the jobs that I would apply for are probably going to be like working downtown in Halifax. So that's like a 45-minute drive in the morning. I'll need extra time. I'll have to park. So I'll be out of here probably by 7:30 at the latest. So you guys will have to walk to school. Okay. And if you forget your lunch or you forget your homework or anything, you're on your own. I won't be able to run over and bring it to you. And I'll probably work, 8:30 to 5 or something. So when I leave, come home, I'm like figuring this out and I'm doing all this. I said, probably be about 6:00 by the time I get home. So you all have to take the dog out, walk the dog, and we'll probably have to set a schedule where everybody takes a turn making supper and getting dinner on the table and all of this. And by the end of the conversation, they were like looking at me like jaw dropped, tongue hanging out, like, okay, maybe mom actually is around more than I gave credit for, right? But I think a lot of business owners, especially ones with kids, think that, you're working so hard so much. And if you have ways to help them with that, you have a really great service that can be out there and help people see the light and change it. You have 3 kids. You're living it, and your kids are younger than mine now.
I am, Kathy, and I'm so glad you shared that. So that statement and that story is similar to mine. And that's why I put that on my website, because my youngest, my daughter, who is 6 years, told me months ago, barely a year now. And she said, Mom, I think you work too hard. She's 6, but I had a conversation with her. And I thought to myself, if she feels that, she told me that when I started looking at the problem of that we small business owners face and how I can help people. And I started figuring out how I have been able to free some of my time and all that now. But I experienced it too. And that's a real problem. And I started thinking to myself that if my daughter said that to me at some point, how many people are their children saying that to them? And one other thing I see often, Kathy, is people tell me when I wait on customers in the store, and people are like, oh, I had an uncle who owned a convenience store. years and years ago, and they go, ah, it was never at family events. They keep on going, and the story is not so. What I hear from the story is like pity, and they kind of feel some kind of pity, like that relative was never around. And I don't see them wanting to do that kind of job. And so I feel, oh, this is a problem. There should be better ways that small business owners or solopreneurs can still do their business, and people would want to go into that profession because they are really helping the economy. They are
Right.
really helping people. So instead of people feeling pity for them, people should be admiring them. One way to do that is to make sure that time is created, time is freed up for them to attend to things that matter.
And see, that's the thing. And I think, part of your message is you have the experience, you've done it, you've been there, you have the retail business, you have the other business, you have the kids, you have the family, you have all the obligations, and you can help these new startup people or these people new into entrepreneurship learn how to put those boundaries in place and learn how to balance things. And the time is freedom. All of those messages are key. And I think they need to be something that are more front and center with your message so that people understand who it is you help, how you help them, and what happens to them when you do. And that can transcend in your podcast, on the website, with everything that you're doing. So I think, for what you want to do with what we were talking about here today, clarifying your message is really for you to coming down with a very clear statement on how you help people, what their problem is, getting specific on it, and then having some versions of it that you can say to people all the time so that they get how you help and what you can do for them and their business and their life, because it's not just their business you're affecting, it will be their overall life.
That's right.
And using your experience for that. So for me, I would assign you the homework, and your next steps here would be to work on a statement like that and be really clear with it. And it may be something you want to put a little more into your podcast title. Ola with Ola Williams, a personal development podcast for entry-level entrepreneurs, solopreneurs. So that is great. It doesn't tell me exactly what you help me with other than personal development. So you can leave your title there, Ola with Ola Williams, because I do love that. It makes you look, very friendly, approachable, and everything else.
Thank you, Kathy.
But maybe what you're welcome. But maybe what you do is look at a way to have the ending part, sort of the subtitle of your podcast, speak more to helping entry-level solopreneurs, giving entrepreneurs the freedom to focus on what matters most. Even that line speaks a little more clearly to what you do in the podcast and what you're trying to do versus a personal development podcast for entry-level solopreneurs. Do you see what I mean for a difference there?
I see what you mean. Kind of like the personal development podcast for entry-level. Does that sound like general, it's not specific?
Yeah, so it is a personal development podcast, but tell me what you do for me if I listen to it, right? It's a podcast that gives entrepreneurs the freedom to focus on what matters most, right? Some of those words that you have in there, unlocking your highest potential, Ola with Ola Williams, a podcast that helps entry-level solopreneurs unlock your highest potential. You're telling me who it's for and what I'm going to do. You're insinuating I have a problem, that I'm stuck and having some issues, which is fine. You can put it more in the description in part of the podcast. But again, if you start leading with some of that, people are going to understand. You're a business coach that helps entry-level solopreneurs learn what they need to do to get the freedom to focus on what matters most and unlock their highest potential. So I think if you develop this messaging, that can change some of what you're doing and how you're reaching people with the marketing you're doing, even with just your presence on the website.
Yeah, I have taken that. And I have to say, Kat, maybe this is a very great platform to say also. I don't know if I've told you, Kat, that you gave me the inspiration to even change the name of my podcast to Ola with Ola Williams. And so I have to give that credit to you, honestly, because you absolutely deserve it. Because almost everybody I have come in contact with after that, they have told me they just love that name alone. Yeah, so
Awesome.
that's great work you did there for me, Kathy. So
I was a guest on Ola's podcast there a couple months ago, and we talked about that a little bit because we were talking about marketing, of course.
Yes.
I'm really glad you had good feedback on it.
I've had absolutely great feedback on it. Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect.
And I'm so glad I made that change like immediately. So yeah.
Oh, well, that's really good. All right. Well, let's wrap this up. So I think you have your action steps. It's really, nailing down that message, that, one-line statement that you can use in an elevator pitch, web content, social media marketing, podcast, whatever it might be. So people really know who Ola Williams is, what kind of folks she helps with her business coaching, and what happens to them when they get the help that you offer them.
Okay. I get it.
All right.
I have so much homework to do.
Well, thank you again, Ola, for being part of the podcast and opening yourself up. I know for some people, they think about, coming on here and doing this, but they don't want to air dirty laundry and tell everybody what's going on. But it really does help other people learn as well, because I know there's tons of people in the same situation. I mean, we had the exact same situation with our kids, just the two samples that we talked about here. So I really thank you for doing that and letting the listeners on my podcast hear some of your struggles and some ways to overcome that, because getting that clarity of message is really important for every business owner. So just as a reminder, anybody listening, you can book your own free marketing review as well. Just visit pepperitmarketing.com/review, enter your information, choose what kind of review you want, what your problem is, and we'll get booked into a session just like I had here with Ola. And I will put a link to that in the show notes. So Ola, why don't you share with our listeners how they can connect with you online and reach out to you if they want to get some of your fabulous advice to help them unlock their highest potential?
Great. So my website is Ola Williams, OLAWILLIAMS.ca, OlaWilliams.ca. And my podcast link is there. My email is there. You can reach me basically through that website. Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. And you're on Instagram too, I think, as Ola Williams Official is her handle over there. And I will put a link to all of that in the show notes, everybody, for those who are listening that want to connect with Ola as well. So thanks again for doing this. And for those of you listening in, I just want to remind you to thrive in business or practice. It really is all about getting clear messaging out there, having a very clear message people understand so they know exactly how you can help them, that you get their problems, that you've got a solution, and that their life will change when they connect with you and work with you. So that's it for today, everybody. I'll see you next time. You can find all of our show notes and resources mentioned at marketingyourprivatepractice.com. Be sure to connect with me on Instagram at pepperitmarketing and say hi. I'd love to hear any feedback you have, and make sure to rate and review the podcast and hit subscribe on your favorite player so you don't miss any future episodes.